If you're struggling with making a decision to move to the Boston area or one of its greater cities and towns outside of Boston, I want to share with you 7 struggles, 7 regrets that people have about moving to Boston. And I want to share this so you can make best possible decisions when you are considering your move for you and your family. And yet, here's the question that I get asked a lot. How is it possible that Massachusetts has been named one of the best states to live in, according to this article in Wallet Hub in 2024? So in today's video, we're going to talk about those struggles, we're going to talk about those regrets, and you're going to let me know at the end which regret you resonate with the most. And let me know also in the comments below if you find this video helpful. So let's dive in. I'm Katherine Kranenburg, and I'm a real estate agent for 17 years in the greater Boston area. I've also moved here myself, so I understand what these regrets and struggles actually feel like. We moved here from Washington, D.C. almost 8 years ago. And so in today's video, not only am I going to share with you some regrets that people have shared with me, but also some I may have avoided before moving here myself. And I will say the only regret that I have is not having a channel like this with the kind of information that we're going to share today. So let's go. So I compiled this list of 7 things that you'll want to understand about Boston before you move here. So number 1, the thing you need to be aware of in Boston is the traffic. And I'm not talking like LA or New York traffic. So according to this article, New York definitely has the top spot in terms of traffic. But Boston traffic can be a consideration when you are choosing where to move and how far you want to commute from your work. There are several highways that take you in and out of Boston. And so I'm going to show you each of these right here on this map. We have I-90, 95, and 93. Now, some of the heaviest traffic is typically on the southbound stretch of 93 in areas like Medford, Somerville, and Arlington. And it particularly gets really clustered at the Zyham Bridge and the Pilgrim Highway. Now, several lanes merge into this area. So if you choose to live in areas that you need to use the 93 corridor, please consider this. And the traffic can start as early as 3 p.m. in and around that area. So I-90 is called the Massachusetts Turnpike. This will take you towards Boston from Brookline, Newton, and Weston. People along and live in these particular areas. It's called Metro West Boston. And you can see heavier traffic usually around the exit that gets closer to Cambridge and Alston. I mean, I don't know a time that I have been around this exit going towards Boston where there wasn't at least, 15 cars deep. Or actually, you can sit at this intersection for probably about 5 to 10 minutes just trying to get down to the ramp. It's one of those little idiosyncrasies about living in Boston because you have all of these roads that kind of intertwine and connect all of these different towns. So again, it can bottleneck in certain areas more than others. So if you're going to consider a move to Boston, you're going to want to consider how commuting to and from work is going to affect your day-to-day life. Some people, they don't mind being in the car for 30 to 40 minutes, and some people just want to spend 10 or 15 minutes max. Now, I don't think you can get pretty much anywhere in Boston in 10 or 15 minutes unless you live in the city. Now, I live in an area close to the city and it's called Newton. Newton here on this map is about 20 minutes from Back Bay or 20 minutes from Seaport. So one way of how to figure out, I think there's 3 ways that you can figure out what is the best commute and how do you map that out. So the first one is go on Google Maps, put in the address of your work or put in the address of the potential area you're going to want to live in and look at that commute time. The second way of how you can figure out about the commute is ask the locals. So perhaps you have friends here or you have family that you're moving here for. They will be a great resource for you in figuring out what is the commute time to these particular areas. Again, I have friends that live in Belmont and their route into Boston is very different from people who live in Metro West and definitely people who are living on 93. So one of the things you're going to know about Massachusetts is that they are winding roads, back roads. So you're going to want to ask your your locals or your colleagues? Do you take back roads to work? Do you take the highways to work? These winding roads can connect you to all of the different towns, can take you all the way into Boston. So they're a wonderful way to get to and from Boston. And then the third way of how you can figure this out is actually just go into those neighborhoods and just see what it's like there, because I feel like once you can establish like kind of where you're going to be working and the community you want to be in, you can tie all of those together. So we chose to live closer to Newton, closer to the city from the area that we live in, because we wanted also public transportation. And that's one of the great things about living in Boston is public transportation. You have a variety of different rail lines. You've got the commuter rail, you've got the South Station. So that's a big regret that people have when they move to Boston. Now, the second regret is no surprise, and that's the weather. And we know that Boston can get really cold, and we can have snow blizzards, and sometimes winter can last between 3 and 6 months. Though I haven't quite seen it 6 months, but it's definitely a minimum of 4 months to live in Massachusetts. Now, if you're not familiar with this kind of cold weather, when you think about people moving here from California or Texas or even Florida, you're gonna want to think about your wardrobe, because you're gonna wanna consider your wardrobe. It's very seasonal here, so one day it could be windy and cold, and the next day it could be snowing, and the next day it could be a blizzard. So invest in some good shoes, invest in some good warm clothing. Now, the coldest month of the year is typically January, and it can usually get down to -10, not all the time. These are severe cases I'm talking about, but on average, I would say January is definitely the coldest month, and it pretty much stays cold in Massachusetts until April. Now, I know that's hard to imagine that's why so many people actually go away for spring break, and actually, I would say the good side of that is that there's a lot of places to ski around here. So if you're considering a move, this is one regret that I think a lot of people have shared, and also we've experienced ourselves. Like, for example, we moved here in January, and so it was really, really cold. I remember picking up the phone and calling a friend and being like, hey, it's 9 inches of snow. Are we actually going to school today? And she was like, yeah, why wouldn't we be? Now, coming from DC, we were pretty surprised that people were still going to school at 9 inches. But here's the deal. Massachusetts doesn't even shut down at 9 inches. It barely shuts down at 18 inches. I mean, the great thing about that is that there are plows. Massachusetts always has the roads cleared out by literally that evening or the next day. So weather-wise, this is a big regret, and I will say this as a sidebar. One of the things that's actually really funny about living here is already starting in October, people are already talking about, should we put our heat on now? Because they want to savor as long as they can these wonderful fall days that we have here. I know that sounds quirky, but that's actually one of the things that people really do talk about here. So Massachusetts, if you don't own a snowplow or a shovel, I would definitely say get one of those. People regret moving to Boston due to the high cost of living. Now, compared to other major cities, I would say Boston is still quite affordable, relatively speaking, when you think about people who move here from California, LA, New York City, Chicago. So I would say, having moved here from DC, we were actually a little bit shocked with the cost of living in terms of home prices, groceries. But like I said, relative to other states that are moving here from like California and New York, I would say it's still relatively affordable. The thing is, what attracts people to Boston is the robust job market. Also, the universities, the prestigious universities and colleges draw people here. And what ends up happening is they come here for school and then they end up staying here for work. And so the salaries that are offered here for those jobs are actually, a huge attraction for people that move to Boston. With that, translates into higher cost of living. Now, when we think about the cost of living, we're talking about homes, right? So not only electricity to heat those homes, but also home sales and home prices in general. So home sales in general have gone up between 10 and 15% sort of year over year. And the values of those homes and those medium home prices are really gonna vary town to town. I actually did a video on that, and you can find that here for a more in-depth analysis of which areas of Massachusetts actually have different costs and styles of living. So go and check that out. Anyway, affordability is each to its own and particular to everyone's situation. But when you think about living in a major city like Boston, the need for housing has actually been one of the things that have kept the prices of homes higher than in other areas. I mean, actually all across the United States, you're going to see that there is a need for houses to be built, and that the homes that are selling are actually having more than just a few buyers that are looking at it. So if you're moving here and you're not used to houses that are that get several bids or get bid up, you definitely want to talk to your realtor about that, because that is something that we're seeing almost in every market, in every neighborhood, in every town in and around Boston. Now, it's not every house, but you're definitely going to see that this is still very much a seller's market due to the high demand for houses and the need for more houses to come on the market. So if you want to chat more about that, like I said, I'm Katherine Kranenburg. I am a Greater Boston real estate agent. And let me know in this video what you're thinking so far, and let me know where you are actually watching this video from, and put it in the comments below. So we're just gonna keep going. So when you couple the demand of the cost of living, the housing shortage, the need for housing, you couple that with that kind of demand, also with the inflation that we've seen over the last several years, it's been challenging, right? So schools like MIT, Harvard, and Northeastern, they draw people from all over the world. And so that also keeps the cost of living here at a premium, especially with sought after schools like those, and even sought after public schools that you have in and around Massachusetts. The job market is really robust and healthy. You can tell by this article that the job market is actually really robust and the economy here is really healthy, which makes people really want to move here. So let me know if this regret is something that you have felt or that you're considering when you are moving to Boston. And so as a realtor here in the Greater Boston area, questions I get asked a lot is, which community is closest to the school? Is it walking distance? If we like to bike or drive, if we want to have a house that is also near community, like a pharmacy or things like that. The fourth regret is that there are great public schools that your kids may not attend. Okay, so hold on a second. Let me explain more about that. Metro Boston has some incredible schools, top ranking public schools, elementary, junior high, middle school, and high school. Now, I know this personally because I have a 14 and a 16-year-old. And when we moved here, they were in elementary school. And so one of the perks for us was living in a neighborhood that was near the schools that we wanted our children to go to. So when you choose a top ranking school, that also contributes to the cost of living, as I just mentioned. Now, I know this firsthand because proximity to school was a key factor for us, and we also did our research. And for us, the town that we ended up in had some of the top rated schools. Now, you really want to make the best decision based on what you know of your child at the time of the move. Like, for example, perhaps you decide that you want to live in an area with top ranking schools, and you find out later on that maybe your child has a learning difference and they perhaps need to go to a different school district. So you want to make the best decision based on what you know now about your family. I've actually helped families buy and sell homes in those communities where they have top rated schools. And what comes along with that is also higher taxes. And we may be talking on that later in this video, but you just want to make sure that you check out the neighborhoods and where these schools are located. Because with high-ranking schools comes a more competitive school environment. And there's definitely no shortage of competitive classrooms in and around Boston. Most of the teachers have MBAs, PhDs from all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So what comes along with that is that your children may end up wanting to go to those schools as well, which makes it even more competitive in schools like Boston University, Boston College, Northeastern. The only regret that I have heard people share with me is that sometimes they wish they would have shopped around a little bit more for the schools and not have chosen the high-ranking schools. There are families that realize that maybe their child has a learning difference and that they needed a different support. The area that we're in here in Newton, the schools here really cater to extra special requests and special needs. So that's why we actually see our area super competitive in terms of those families wanting to be in these schools and the cost of living here. So let's go into regret number 5, which is taxes. People aren't used to paying the high level of taxes that come along with moving to Boston. So take it from me, I wasn't born here and I wasn't raised here, but there is a little bit of a culture shock when it comes to paying taxes in Massachusetts. So unlike New York City, Boston does not have a separate city tax like they have there. So I guess we are a little bit ahead with that one. The number 6 regret is the friendliest of Massachusetts. Okay, I think it's the unfriendliness of Massachusetts, but you kind of get used to it after a while, the way that things are done here. According to the Business Insider, they ranked Boston as the 5th rudest city in the nation. Now, I don't think Boston would be pretty proud of that ranking. Of course, we strive to be the first at everything. And it seems New York, LA, Washington, DC, and even Chicago beats us out. Can you actually believe that? Chicago? Really? Even with all of that said, Wallet Hub named Massachusetts the best state to live in. Now, I think they used rankings around the way of life, the ease, the convenience to things, the overall health and economy, but we are not really talking about all those things. We are just talking about the culture of the people that live in Massachusetts. So if you come from southern states like Texas, you're probably going to find this place a little cold. I mean, we did, and we came from DC. But like I said, you'd kind of just get used to it. And it's not cold as in rude. It's just they're in their own heads a lot. They have busy lives. This is a very busy area to live in. They're very much into their families and their work. So even with all of this and our ranking of being one of the rudest states above DC, Washington, LA, New York, Chicago, really? There's a lot of people that really don't want to hold the door for you here. So if you're coming from the South where you hold the door open, or you say good morning to people, or how they stop on a major road and let the people on the side roads just come onto the street. I mean, it honestly, I have seen accidents caused by this. I don't know if you would say that's friendly or not friendly, but it's definitely something that's a little bizarre when you move here, and you kind of have to get used to that as well. I would say living in the suburbs, if you have a dog, that is the easiest way to open people up here when you're doing walks or you're going to parks. That, I would say, is a friendly atmosphere. But overall, here's the thing. You've probably heard that Massachusetts are called massholes. Well, there's a reason for that. It's usually because they're either in their car driving, they're frustrated that they couldn't get over to the next lane, or they missed their turn, or the person in front of them isn't moving, or the person behind you is not letting you in. They can usually get a little irate. You'll probably also see this in the sports stadiums. There's a reason why people call them massholes in those situations as well. So it's no surprise that friendliness is actually one of the regrets people know about or people consider before moving to Massachusetts. Now, as a realtor, I have helped lots of people, not only from this channel, but locally, move to and from the state of Massachusetts. And having moved here myself, I would say it takes a little time, but once you break in, it is really a charming and lovely state. lovely area to live in. You just have to find your people, figure out your lifestyle. I promise you there is something for everyone. And the final regret, number 7 regret people have moving to Boston is if you are a night owl and you like staying up late and you like doing the town, Boston, especially in the suburbs, shuts down early. And when I mean shut down early, I'm talking 9, 10 o'clock in the suburbs, shops sometimes even 6 or 7 o'clock. Sure, Boston has some amazing restaurants, a great foodie scene, and they really try and be creative, but overall, there is no happy hour in Massachusetts. Actually, it's a statewide ban on happy hour, and liquor sales shut down at 2 a.m. So you'll want to consider this when you're moving here, and especially in the suburbs. Like I said, restaurants can close at 9, sometimes as late as 10. Things pretty much shut down. And what's interesting about that is like one of them, I remember Natick Mall, it closes at like 7 in the summer and then like 9 during the winter and fall months. So I don't know, it seems backwards to me, but what do I know? So if you're looking for late night and you are wanting to jump into a little faux cafe or you're wanting to grab tapas, you're probably not gonna find that much creativity in the suburbs, but I will say that all of the small towns outside of the city do offer something unique and some interesting cuisine. So, but just know that they close early. Just last month, Massachusetts lawmakers tried to remove the ban on happy hours, but got stuck in budget talks and all kinds of things, and it never really made it through. So who knows, maybe Massachusetts will try again next year. The great thing though is Boston has a great food scene. There's a lot of choices out there. So it's really important to remember that just like any other place, there will always be some negatives and some regrets. I lived in many places in my life, and so far I would say Boston is a pretty cool place to be. And no sense of the word cool as in cold, but I'm saying it's actually a really, really great city. It's a city that feels like a small town, that lives like a small town. It can be as big or as small as you would like. And most of the things I mentioned here today did have to be about living in and around the city, but if you're looking outside the city, there's a ton of great neighborhoods, a ton of great towns that you can explore, and there's even ones along the Massachusetts coastline. But frankly, I think our city is awesome. So I hope you found some value in today's video. Whether you're moving here in 9 days or 90 days or in the distant future, give us a call. We'd love to be your realtor of choice here in the greater Boston area. All of my contact information is below. You can hit the subscribe button. We put out new content every week. You can also set up an appointment if you want to have a quick discovery call. I'd love to chat with you and learn about your home goals and your move to the Boston area. So let me know if you have any questions or drop some comments down below. You never know if your comment or your question is someone else's, so please share, and we'll see you on the next video.